This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. Uncle Remus by Joel Chandler Harris. Chapter 31, A Plantation Witch. The next time the little boy got permission to call upon Uncle Remus, the old man was sitting in his door, with his elbows on his knees and his face buried in his hands, and he appeared to be in great trouble. "What's the matter, Uncle Remus?" the youngster asked.
"Nuff de matter, honey. Mo' dan dey's any call for. Ef dey ain't some queer goin's on roun' dis place, I ain't named Remus."
The serious tone of the old man caused the little boy to open his eyes. The moon, just at its full, cast long, vague, wavering shadows in front of the cabin. A colony of tree frogs somewhere in the distance were treating their neighbors to a serenade, but to the little boy it sounded like a chorus of lost and long-forgotten whistlers. The sound was wherever the imagination chose to locate it, to the right, to the left, in the air, on the ground, far away or near at hand, but always dim and always indistinct. Something in Uncle Remus's tone exactly fitted all these surroundings, and the child nestled closer to the old man. "Yasser," continued Uncle Remus, with an ominous sigh and a mysterious shake of his head.
"Ef dey ain't some queer goin's on in dish yer neighborhood, dat I'm de bald-headedest creetur 'twixt this and next Jinuary was a year ago, which I knows I ain't. Dat's what."
"What is it, Uncle Remus?"
"I know Mars John bin drivin' Charley sorter hard today, and I say to myself dat I'd drap round 'bout dusk and fling another year corn in de trough, and kinder give 'em a tetchin' up wid a currier comb, and bless gracious, I ain't bin in de lot more'n a minute 'fore I seed somethin' was wrong wid de hoss, and sho enough dere was his mane full of witch stirrups."
"Full of what, Uncle Remus?"
"Full of witch stirrups, honey. Ain't you seed no witch stirrups? Well, when you see two strands of hair tied together in a hoss's mane, there you see a witch stirrup, and more'n dat hoss done bin rid by 'em."
"Do you reckon they have been riding Charley?" inquired the little boy.
"Course, honey. To be sho dey is. What else dey been doin'?"
"Did you ever see a witch, Uncle Remus?"
"Dat ain't needer yer nor dere. When I see a coon track in de branch, I know de coon bin 'long dere."
The argument seemed unanswerable, and the little boy asked, in a confidential tone, "Uncle Remus, what are witches like?"
"Dey comes diffunt," responded the cautious old darky. "Dey comes and dey conjus folks. Squinch Owl holler eve'y time he see a witch, and when you hear de dog howlin' in de middle er de night, one of 'em's mighty apt to be prowlin' round. Conjun' folks kin tell a witch de minute dey lays der eyes on it, but dem what ain't conjun', hit's mighty hard to tell w'en dey see one, 'kase dey might come in de 'pearance of a cow and all kinder creeturs. I ain't bin used to no conjun' myself, but I bin livin' long 'nuff fer to know when you meets up wid a big black cat in de middle er de road wid yaller eyeballs, dar's yo' witch fresh from de ole boy. And furdermore, I know dat 'tain't burned inter no dogs fer to ketch de rabbit what use in a buryin' ground. Dey're de most ungodliest creeturs what you ever laid eyes on," continued Uncle Remus with unction. "Down dar in Putmon County, your Uncle Jeems, he make like he gwineter catch one er dem dar graveyard rabbits. Sho enough, out he goes, en de dogs ain't no more'n got to de place 'fo' up jump de ole rabbit right 'mong 'em, en atter runnin' roun' a time er two,
she skipped right up to Mars Jeems, and Mars Jeems, he jest put the gun barrel right on her and lammed loose. Hit tore it up the ground all round, and the dogs, they rush up, but there wa'n't no rabbit there. By, Mars Jeems, he seed the dogs tuckin' their tails tween their legs, and he look up, and there was the rabbit caperin' round on a tombstone, and wid dat, Mars Jeems say he sorter feel like the time done come when your grandma was 'spectin' of him home, and he called off the dogs and put out. But them was ha'nts. Witches is these yer kind of folks what can trap their body and change into a cat and a wolf and all kind of creatures. Papa says there ain't any witches, the little boy interrupted. Mars John ain't lived long as I is, said Uncle Remus by way of comment. He ain't been bruisin' round all hours of the night and day. I know the nigger witch's brer was a witch, 'cause he up and told me how he took and cured him, and he cured him good, man. How was that? Inquired the little boy. Hit seemed like, continued Uncle Remus, that witch folks is got a slit in the back of the neck, and when they want to change theirself, they just pull the hide over their head same as if 'twas a shirt, and there they is. Do they get out of their skins? Asked the little boy in an awed tone. To be sure, honey. You see your paw pull his shirt off? Well, that's just exactly the way they does. But this yer nigger what I tellin' you about, he cured his brer the very first pass he made at him. It got so that folks in the settlement didn't have no peace. The chilluns 'd wake up in the mornings with their hair all tangled up, and with scratches on 'em like they been through a briar patch. Till by, one day the nigger he 'lowed that he'd set up that night, keep one eye on his brer. Sure enough, that night, just as the chickens was crowin' for 12, up jumped the brer and pulled his skin off and sailed out of the house in the shape of a bat. And what does the nigger do but grab up the hide and turn it wrong side outwards and sprinkle it with salt. Then he lay down and watched for to see what the news was going to be. Just 'fore the day, here come a big black cat in the door, and the nigger get up, he did, and druv her away. By, here come a big black dog snuffin' round, and the nigger up with a chunk and lammed him in the side of the head. Then a squinch owl lit on the comb of the house, and the nigger jammed the shovel in the fire and make him flew away. Las', here come a great big black wolf with his eyes shining like fire coals. He grabbed the hide and rush out. 'Twa'n't long 'fore the nigger hear his brer hollerin' and squallin', and he took a light, he did, and went out. And there was his brer just a-wallerin' on the ground and squirmin' round, 'cause the salt on the skin was stingin' worse'n if he'd got his britches lined with yaller jackets. By next mornin' he got so he could sorter shuffle along, but he give up conjurin', and if there was any more witches in dat settlement, they kep' mighty close, and dat nigger he ain't skint himself no more, not endurin' my remembrance. The result of this was that Uncle Remus had to take the little boy by the hand and go with him to the big house, which the old man was not loath to do, and when the child went to bed, he lay awake a long time, expecting an unseemly visitation from some mysterious source. It soothed him, however, to hear the strong, musical voice of his sable patron, not very far away, tenderly contending with a lusty tune, and to this accompaniment the little boy dropped asleep. It's 1848. Christ done made that crooked way straight, and I don't want to stay here no longer. It's 1849. Christ done turned that water into wine, and I don't want to stay here no longer. End of the tale.